Hey, folks, welcome to the Generational Gap. I am Robert, your resident Gen Xer, and right over there, way over there, is John, our resident millennial. John, how are you doing tonight?
Fantastic as always.
And
Very excited.
why are you excited? Because of the person sandwiched between us?
Yes, because of him, because of Jake, who runs some sort of website or another, something like
Jake.
that. That
Jake.
I forgot. It's weird.
He used to be with State Farm, I believe.
That's what I
But
heard.
I'm
Yeah.
not wearing khakis.
No?
No.
Actually, I'm not wearing any pants at all.
Is that
Well,
true,
yes.
or is that just for show? Is that just for stage appearances?
You'll have to wait and find out.
Why is there going to be a big reveal at some point, or is it just a?
Could be. I might do a big reveal.
Is this just
I
going to
don't
be a
know.
big hanging Chad?
As long as you use the word big, we'll be all right.
Well,
Fair.
it did give you a larger box in between us. So, it's
That's why I grew a beard, just so I'd have the room in the larger box.
So what's with the beard? What's with the beard?
Oh, it's a sexual thing.
He just wants to be more like me. That's
No,
all.
no, I grew it
You know,
because my wife hates my beard.
Perfect. Good reason.
wow, God,
Yeah.
oh wow, that's hardcore.
Yeah, I'm
That's
with you, man.
hardcore. Hey, listen.
And
Oh, go ahead.
go for it.
No, you go.
Nope.
No, I
Okay.
No, you
insist.
hang
The
up.
Duck Dynasty guys, they got beards, and you
They
have a
do.
beard,
I
so
do.
therefore I need a beard.
But the Doug Dynasty guys, they did that all for the show. Have you ever seen them before they did the show? They were all like college prep boys on the golf course. I mean,
Oh,
seriously,
really?
they were like business guys out there playing golf and shit with their college education and their fancy little business. And then they
Oh,
got picked
God.
for the show. Yeah, they grew all that out and they started living roughneck. It was
That's
interesting
funny.
the change in them. But see, do you feel more outspoken with that beard on your face?
No, I feel more itchy and hot.
Itchy and hot. Yeah.
I think it does nothing.
Then you're not using it right.
Doesn't have magical powers.
Not yet.
I have not won the lottery. Um,
You got to
that's
rub
about
Buddha.
yeah.
You got to rub Buddha's belly for the lottery. I mean, everybody
Yeah.
knows that.
We got Midget B in the chat.
What's
What's
up?
up, Twunce? He
What's
called
up?
us Twunce.
What?
Twunce. I like
Once.
twunce. That's a good
Twunce.
word.
That is a good word. I
So,
enjoy that.
so John, it's been a week. What's been going on in your week? Anything in your week?
Has been a
No,
week. Well, I mean, I got a promotion at work, so that's pretty sweet. Big
really.
raise. It's pretty
So,
awesome. Yeah.
so they gave you knee pads.
Yeah, I got knee pads now,
There it
and
is.
a little bib,
Where's
and a
my?
little bib that goes right here.
There it is. Right there.
Ba-doom-tsh.
Yeah.
Thanks. That's good. I like that. I like that you got some knee pads. That makes your job much easier, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's much better on the knees.
But they,
On
they
the old
take
joint.
away the pay. You get a pay deduction, and they add the knee pads.
Right, but I also got a bib, like I said. It goes right here, so when you dribble,
Ah.
right down onto there. It's
Did
nice.
they give you the bib with the little pocket at the bottom to catch everything,
Yeah, of
so
course.
that you can
How else would you?
recup and reconstitute?
How many times do you have to change outfits in a normal day?
It depends on the day. If the boss doesn't come in, then maybe 2 3 times. But if he's in, probably 7 or 8 at that point. It's just, just all day.
But congratulations! I'm glad to hear that,
Yeah, thank you.
John. It,
Thank
it
you, thank
gives
you.
me a warm, fuzzy feeling inside.
Me too. Mine's probably a little further
Right.
down.
Yeah, yeah, I'm over it. But so we can move on. I mean, good job. Whatever.
Warm
Um,
fuzzy feeling. That sounds like a beard.
Yes,
Wow.
beard.
You got to let it go. You guys have got to let it go. I'm just saying.
I'm trying. It's taking a little while to grow a little bit more.
Yep.
I want it out here again.
Ironically, I can't really grow a beard or anything, but whenever I was growing up, a lot of people were like, oh, people who wear facial hair, they're hiding from somebody. That's why they grow facial hair because when I grew up in Oklahoma, hardly anybody did. You didn't even see a lot of
Right.
mustaches, right? But
Hmm.
but I couldn't grow anything. I'm like, well, what if I need to hide? I can barely grow anything on my face. Oh dear God, I'm screwed.
Yep.
And then I got a tattoo, and I'm like, yeah, well, I'm done now anyway. Hey,
Right, it's pretty identifiable.
hey, John,
Hey,
there might be people that don't know who Jake is. Would you say
I
that's
don't know
true?
who Jake is.
Would you
You just told
don't?
me this guy was coming on, and all of a sudden I was like, oh,
No,
okay,
wait.
this
I
is the
thought
bearded
you
guy
set
here.
this up.
See, I thought I was the beard for the show, but I
See,
guess,
you had this set up for last week, right? We were supposed to have a big
Yes, yeah.
guest, big announcement. We were gonna have all this fanciness going on in the show, but something happened. What was it, John? I can't.
We got stood up by this one guy.
Stood up,
Stood up, right?
like just
Like
by
it's prom night.
just
Who?
just
Who?
just cold.
I
Just
don't know
stood
if
up.
this
It was like
it was
standing
something to do with like freedom or like 1776 or I don't know, something like that.
ice cream.
I can't remember
Is
his
there
name.
ice
So yeah,
cream?
there was like an
Ice
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 cream
cream.
parlor,
cream.
like an
Yeah,
American ice cream parlor or something. What was
yeah,
it?
it was something like that.
Oh, that that would be a good ice
Kind of
cream
like John's
parlor name.
job.
There you go.
Wow. And you say you
Yeah.
don't know
Uh,
this guy. He knows you. All right. So, Jake, Jake,
Yes, Jake
there
from
might be
Freedom
some
Scoop.
people who are not familiar with you. So, Jake, can you tell us, give us a Jake in a nutshell? Can you give us Jake in a nutshell and tell us a little bit about how you get here and where you're coming from?
trying to be in a nutshell.
It was
So
a good
I'm
nutshell.
Yeah,
I'm J-
I believed
I
it.
am from the Freedom Scoop. Uh, we are trying to bring a couple of independent podcasters, media producers, writers, authors, journalists together to create a kind of new style of podcasting, of YouTubing. We want to kind of build from the bottoms up. So all of us have real jobs. We're real people. Well, most of us have real jobs, but you know, some of
Mhm.
us we've talked about those so far. So,
Hey,
anyways,
it's all real work.
It's really gross. So there's that.
it's really
There's
gross.
a lot of gross
But
jobs.
but we want to kind of get those people that are really like in the community. The guy you go and see at the parts shop, or uh, the guy you see that's bagging groceries, or whatever. That mechanic, that farmer, whoever you are. We want to get you and doing on Freedom Scoop, and I think people are really taken to it. We're building a true grassroots, because these are the people who actually dig up grassroots because they're landscapers and whatnot. Most of these big grassroots organizations seem to be sponsored by somebody, and we're not. We're just sponsored by me and my telephone and you and your laptop or whatever. That's about it. We don't have support from the Koch brothers or that Sheldon guy. We don't speak too much of him because we don't want to be sued. But but yeah, that's kind of our shtick. And you guys, we got you guys on there,
Yeah.
so
Yeah,
do your thing.
So tell
sure
me,
do.
Jake, why is that important? Like, I mean, I see us as having more difficulty with believing that our input matters. So whether it's John and I, or whether it is your grassroots landscaper, or whoever it is, I mean, it's a pretty common thought in this country that it really doesn't matter what we think. I mean, we see so much going on, with our politics, from our government, that really we didn't ask for this. We didn't, we didn't get a say in this representative democracy we're in. You know, what difference does it make hearing these voices? I mean, is it going to make a difference?
No.
It's a good answer. I like it. That's a very good answer, and it's honest.
About right.
There's some brutality to his honesty, and I
No.
like it.
So no. The thing is voices are just voices, and I can say whatever I want now. You can say whatever you want now. Um, and that's exactly it. It's not going to change a thing, but by having some solidarity, now these pieces, these single people out there that are listening to this, they're all going to start collectively thinking. And collective thinking is bad in some ways, but good in others. If you have individual thought, that is good for the group, okay? Because the group builds off of all these individual thoughts. But without the group, you're not going to change legislation. You're not going to change your senators. So if you go out and you vote for Tom Jones for Senate, and your neighbor votes for Larry Jones, and then their neighbor votes for Jim Jones, you might not want that third neighbor in your development anymore. But Robert probably got that one.
Oh,
But
I'm right there
I know
with
who
you.
Jim Jones is. Yeah, I got it.
I keep the Kool-Aid handy.
my point is if you have 10 or 12 or 15 different people, everybody's going to have some slight variance of their ideas. So once you start building groups like this, you kind of start unifying around your ideas. You might want your grass cut at an inch tall, but your neighbor might say an inch and a half, and your other neighbor might say 2 inches. Well, then the three of you all decide an inch and a half is the proper height. You see what I'm saying?
Mhm.
And that's kind of it. We all will meld our voices, hopefully, and come to kind of a collective understanding. Right now, party labels we have are, you have the Republicans, you have Democrats, and you have like all these millions of others. You have socialists and libertarians. You have about 100 billion different thoughts that are considered parties, like the New York party, the rent is too damn high party. Okay. We all probably can agree on that, but that never went anywhere.
Right.
Why not? We needed that party. I agree on that party. So the only way you accomplish something is as a collective. So no, our voices individually are not going to change anything, but collectively, as we build, that's going to kind of help unify people, give them kind of a base to follow, give them something to look forward to push for, to pursue. Maybe it's not, maybe the concerning thing of your day is not necessarily the concerning thing of everybody else's in your communities or your states or your countries. But if we can determine that this one thing affects us all in either a major way or a minor way, then we can work to get that thing done. And so, I don't know. That's what I got. There you go. Bam. Collective thought.
Midget, we can combine our psychic and mimetic energy and fuel the warp to make meme magic manifest in reality. And then
Oh,
there's
yeah.
that.
We've done that.
There's
That's why
that
Trump
option.
was elected.
That was poetic.
Done.
that-
It is.
Wow.
Mimetics.
So that's poetic. Is that what you think? Is that what we're going
I think
with?
so, yes.
I like that.
I'm 14 and this is deep.
So,
The-
and that idea accounts for the variation in views. Is that correct? Like, I mean, we can have some very diverse standpoints.
Right.
We can be as as staunchly libertarian or as staunchly democratic or staunchly republican as we want, as long as we're all collectively discussing the issues. Correct?
Right. And then eventually you'll come to some conclusion that's sensible, that appeases the far right and the far left. I mean, there are far rights and far lefts on both sides of the aisle. The right has their left-leaning Mitt Romneys and Jeff Flakes, and then their far right-leaning, I don't even know who you'd call a far right anymore, because everybody's considered on the far right. Mitt Romney's considered a right-wing, far off the reservation half the time nowadays, but by the left at least. But you get what I'm saying. You can have the Bernie Sanders crowd and you can have the Joe Biden crowd on the Democrat Party. There's going to be extremes in both parties, for them at least, in their brains. And there should be some unity, you know what I mean, between those different ideas. I don't know. Maybe I'm not wording what I'm meaning correctly. But,
No, I got you.
Yeah.
No, that makes good sense. But it seems to come down to the vote anyway, right? So when it's all said and done, is it we've got to have these conversations to get more people active, or is there's so many grassroots movements there's different ones, right? How do we unify that? How do we get that to be the collective that actually puts some fear into Washington?
So I think a big part of it is there are too many people active. Uh, I think that it goes back to the college philosophy. How many people is enough people going to college?
Okay.
And right now, we have so many people going to college that it is diluting the system. We have so many people active in politics that it is diluting the system. But that slowly is going to change because Americans are notoriously short attention span. That's why we love McDonald's and we love 30-minute television shows. Okay. They could have made one Marvel movie and encompassed all of it, right? Like a 6-hour Titanic marathon Marvel movie.
Right.
But they didn't. They made 60 of them because we have short attention spans. We can focus for an hour and a half, 2 hours, 3 hours, and then we're done. But if they made one 6-hour movie, people wouldn't have gone and seen it. It wouldn't have been as popular as all these little snippets that we've given. And I think as a society, that's how we are. And I think that that's why a lot of like the libertarian philosophies, I think that's why they stand strong in America, because we understand that people have short attention spans and that the government has long attention spans. I mean, the government, our government, the United States government, was set up to do things extremely slow. I mean, inch along. And so the libertarian philosophy says, well, good. We need the small government. It's almost a federalist idea. We need the local governments to move fast, and the greater government, the state, the government, the United States government, to move very slowly. So, yeah, as a collective, we have so many people engaged right now trying to move this really slow body, when really those people should be engaged at the state level, at the local level, at the city level. I bet you don't even know your county commissioner's name.
I know one who's running for county commissioner.
Yeah.
What's your mayor's name? Do you know the mayor's name?
Of the town I'm in right now?
Yeah.
No.
No.
No, I
See,
don't.
and these are kind of the questions that I think need to be asked. So as a collective, I think that people can come together and change those small things, build these small contingencies that gradually affect the larger outcome. That's how it should be. I mean, everybody should be engaged with your mayor, with your city council, because they're the ones that are fixing the potholes in front of your house, or they're deciding whether they should fix the potholes in front of your house. I mean, when it came down to it in our city, we had a recent bond that well, it actually failed initially. It was like a $33 million bond for a new school, and people said, no, screw the kids. So we did build a school, which I was all on board with. I was like, yeah, we got 25 schools, make the existing ones bigger or better, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And in the meantime, I had a road outside of my house that was a city-owned street that had concave sidewalks that were delving out into the road because the road was so bad. Okay. So these small issues are what the small groups will affect. And your philosophies will impact those greater. Now, the larger group will be assessed by all of these small groups coming together or lending their input time after time after time. And the Rand Pauls of the world and the Paul Ryans and all these guys will eventually hear that. And that's how you affect the greater philosophy. That's why Trump got elected. He didn't get elected from one big mass. He got elected from all these small groups, putting him out there over and over and over again. And the Russians, of course.
And the Russians.
Got to throw those guys in there.
Right.
So I don't know. How do we the social media machine though? Like I see it being utilized the wrong way. We have technology and we have the capability of reaching constituents if, no matter what level we're at and really interacting, yet it seems to be avoided in the proper way. Yeah, being used in the proper way is what I should say. And I don't understand that. I mean, don't we have so much to gain from doing better with it?
So a few years ago, uh, I think I can release this because I don't care anymore. I built a social media platform about 2 years ago that never really went very far. It was one of my first forays into kind of the online political mass movement. Like I wanted to grapple hundreds of thousands of people and say, "Hey, do this," and it didn't really work that well. But part of the reason was because I didn't push it hard enough, probably, and part of the reason was because of these major medias. But I built a social media platform that was Android based and had you had a cap, so you could only have 10 friends.
Mm.
Think about Twitter or Facebook if you could only have 10 friends. Okay.
Wow.
So if I have something, if I have my profile and I post something, my 10 friends can see it. And when they share it, their 10 friends can see it.
Mm.
You see? So that's how your stuff spreads. But then you weed out these people on social media that have like the Krasenstein brothers that were recently kicked off of Twitter that had
Yeah.
1 million followers from the last year and a half. You know, you weeded that out, and it really got down to your content. If it was good enough, then it could grow and grow and grow and
Right.
grow.
I
So
like that. Yeah.
yeah, so see, I said, man, this is going to revolutionize how people do social media. And within 6 months, I'd blown through my budget. I had about 900 to 1,000 people signed up and subscribed. Um,
Hmm.
but with that, the problem was I didn't have enough connections, people to people to people. With 1,000 people, you don't spread very fast. You see,
Right.
because everybody can only have 10 friends, and it's not going to work out perfectly. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
One person over here might only have one friend
Right.
because they don't know the other people in 1,000. So if you have a mass consortium of 10 million people, that idea would work good. But it's
Yeah.
getting that 10 million people to move away from the sheep think and the group think and the fact that they want to be on Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest because there's millions of people on there, and
Hmm.
move to an individualized network. And that's the hard part. Yeah. So anyway, so that was my idea. So I think that social media companies, the biggest problem is the popularity. It's a giant friggin' popularity contest. Um, and that's about it. You know, you log in to see somebody's account and they have a low follow count. A lot of people go, well, they're not anybody important.
Hmm.
But that's not necessarily true. I mean, uh, I know one senator in particular that I followed recently. He's a senator of a well-known state, and his follower count on Twitter was like 1,200.
Wow.
Wow.
But
Yeah.
he's a senator.
Right.
Yeah. So you go, wow, that's pretty impressive. Um, I don't know why that was. I think that's because he doesn't promote anything on social media, you know?
Or
Yeah.
he
If he doesn't really use the account,
Mm-hmm.
or plays
you
it
know.
close to the vest. You know.
Right, right. So
Yeah.
that doesn't really affect it. So as to your question on how do we combat social media, uh, either it has to collapse in on itself and change, or uh, the free market will take it over and somebody will come up with something better. Uh, but I mean, the same things were said about the Boston Herald, the New York Times, um, the Globe, all of these magazines and newspapers when they first came out. They were said to be taking over the airwaves. We wouldn't have town criers anymore. We wouldn't have people communicating with each other. We just have these mass media publications that would dominate and control the news, which I guess was correct. So,
So
Yeah.
maybe what we need is a political app, right?
mm-hmm.
Where the only the only accounts on there are going to be politicians. They can post on there, and you can have an account to respond to them, but not your own, and not necessarily a public profile, as it were, if you're not a politician, if you're just a constituent. But you can post to it, and you can follow, and you can keep up with things. And if you want to access it, we can kill income tax and make it subscriber based with monthly access fees. So, you can pay to be involved in politics and pay to have your voice heard with your representatives. You can pay into the system as opposed to paying taxes. So it could be it'd be an at will kind of thing. I think it would make lots of money.
So I've always said, as for you're saying pay into to be involved in politics, I think that's a good idea. But one of the things that I've always said was, I think that the amount of money that somebody should be able to spend on a campaign should be dictated by the amount of constituents they have. So let's say a representative represents roughly 500,000 or a million people, let's just say. Okay, somewhere in there. I know it varies state by state. But if you have 750,000 constituents, let's say your cap is $5 per constituent. You see what I'm saying? So then you're talking each person could only have 5 times 750. So you're talking $3,750,000 in their war chest, give or take. I mean, and that's just, an arbitrary number, $5. Maybe it's 20 or 100 or whatever. But I mean, then if you have a senator that represents 1 million people, they could maybe have $5 million in their war chest. But this would limit it. So they'd have to decide where to take the money from. And we'd have all these capped donations out there, you see?
Right. But the only thing that, and they've talked about this, or I've seen talk about this before, in trying to limit campaign funds that way, then it requires that advertising be impacted, be controlled by saying, okay, you can't charge this much money to a candidate who needs to have advertising, because now they're capped on how much money they have available for their campaign. You have to cap on how much you charge them for. So now you start to step on free enterprise in a sense. Because it's just, they use it for advertising.
Richard Blumenthal wants to put an ad out during the Super Bowl, and the Super Bowl says, hey, our minimum bid is $30 million. And Blumenthal says, well, I only have 500,000 to spend. And they say, well, fine, then you have to accept it for 500,000. I get what you're saying. Yeah.
And do you want that kind of government oversight in that free market? I mean, now we have to encroach on how businesses sell sell advertising.
Right.
And there's a fine line there. I mean, I don't love the fact where money comes from for campaigns. I hate it. And all this super PAC bullshit. Stephen Colbert did an interesting exercise a few years back where they set up a super PAC for him to get on a ballot to run for president. I remember that. Right?
Yep.
And he had a lawyer who came in and lawyered the whole thing all the way through, talking about what he was able to do and what he wasn't able to do, this, that, and the other thing. And when it was all said and done, he was able to walk away with money in his pocket from that super PAC and never even went anywhere other than getting his name on a local ballot.
Right.
And I'm like, the system is broken, right? We've got problems here. So the alternative, I think, is to, say advertising for politicians should be free of charge on major networks. They have to vie for the positions, right? It can be funded by the government to a certain extent. Okay, pay out some subsidies to the networks, et cetera, that are going to have these. But when it's all said and done, make it free to the candidates, and then they wouldn't have to scramble for so many campaign dollars.
Now you've got groups like Sinclair Media that would lobby for that. I personally like Sinclair. I think that Sinclair is a good corporation. I think they do some good reporting. They bought out strategically all of the local stations. I mean, I don't know, 300 or something local stations. I don't know if you've seen this.
No.
But you have. I don't know if you guys are affected by it. So my local station, my local NBC, is owned by Sinclair Broadcast Group. So they are the largest broadcast group you've never heard of. Okay, he is a I would say a right-leaning, more libertarian-minded gentleman, or at least Sinclair is. I don't know how his group really monetizes himself, but they bought out all these local stations, and they really pushed through in 2016 to say, hey, we're not for bias. We're not going to lean to the left. And you can tell that by a couple of their programs that they have, like uh, Cheryl Atkinson's Full Measure. Okay, Cheryl Atkinson is a great reporter, but she'll do an hour and a half program on the border wall and talk about immigrants coming in or problems with the border, whereas your normal news station wouldn't do that sort of thing. So we're seeing these groups form like that. I guess that would be a fear of mine, would be if we're going to pay out subsidies, that you'd have these media conglomerates with 300, 400, 500 stations that they own saying, yeah, let's do that. And then giving some sort of a discounted rate to one side or the other. You know what I mean?
Right. See, isn't that
It's
interesting?
complicated.
John, do you notice how quickly minds go to corruption these days?
Oh yeah,
How is someone going to
Yeah.
corrupt the system, right? This is
right.
immediately where we go to now. Is
Yeah,
that a
it's
That's
necessary though.
that's probably my biggest fear.
Yeah.
isn't that a bad isn't that a bad thing? Like,
I mean, it's a practical thing for sure to try and prevent corruption.
well, yeah, I would agree with that. But it bothers. Does it not bother you to live in a time where your first inclination is to question how it's going to be corrupted?
I
We're
mean, I
that
think,
jaded.
I mean, it's sad, yeah, but I think it's necessary and important.
So Sinclair Broadcast Group has 8,400 employees. They are on the Dow Jones. So they're a publicly traded company. Their revenue is $2.7 billion a year.
Wow.
Yeah, and you've never heard of them?
No,
Sinclair has faced scrutiny from media critics as well as some of its station employees for the conservative slant of their station's news reporting and other programming decisions, and how the company's rapid growth has aided the airing of content that supports these views. I'm just reading from Wikipedia.
So
Um,
they're like all media now.
they're huge. They're monstrous. And
Hmm.
uh, Sinclair Stations. Okay, this is what I'm trying to find out. How many stations? Huh.
While you do that, we have here in the chat, D and Monk says, "Have you seen the Sinclair compilation where a lot of the news stations speak the same exact dialogue?"
Yep.
I
We
have seen,
watched it
yeah,
live.
we did,
Yeah.
That's
So
crazy talk right there. See now,
yeah.
but again, I mean, is this surprising? Uh, Are you surprised that a news conglomerate would be doing that?
Not at all, no,
I mean,
not
it's
surprised.
about par for the course these days, isn't it? You know, it's just
Yeah, oh yeah, oh
control the
yeah,
narrative, especially if you have multiple sources to control the narrative from within, right?
and it's very effective. Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
I know this is. I don't want this to sound stupid, but is Sinclair? Did they get their start in oil by chance? Did they used to be an oil company?
I don't know. I think they used to be Chesapeake TV, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, because used to
So
when I was growing up, do you remember the Sinclair Oil?
Sinclair Oil was
They had the
huge.
Brontosaurus, the dinosaur,
Yep.
for their
We
logo.
still have one in town.
Shut up.
Nope, nope. We still
You
have a
get me a
Sinclair.
picture of that, Jake from Freedom
I
Scoop.
will. I
Jake from
will.
Freedom Scoop, you better.
Yep, I will.
Oh
So
my God.
Sinclair is the largest owner of television stations in the United States. It owns or operates a total of 193 outlets with 89 markets, ranging in size from Washington D.C. to as small as Ottumwa, Iowa. So they have ABC, CBS, NBC, and Fox, as well as specialty channels. Uh, yeah, they're huge. Their biggest competitor, Nexstar Media Group, announced their intent to buy Tribune Media after a bid rejected because of monopoly laws. But
Mm.
they're huge. They're gigantic. So I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I mean, especially with the way media bias is, you know, you got to argue yourself. Would you prefer two sides equally sized battling each other out? Or would you prefer one side to dominate and nobody to be on the other side because you don't want the fight? You know what I mean?
Mm.
So
Well,
that's the question.
that's a question that just ran through my mind. I'm like, okay, so if something like Sinclair exists,
Mm-hmm.
what what chance does new media like us have? I mean, where do we fit into something like that? I mean, how it's like facing Mount Everest and realizing
48 years ago, we were Sinclair, you know? So here's the question. Uh, when Glenn Beck was sent to the bottom of the field because he was fired from Fox News, uh, was he considered a big media giant at that point, 3, 4, 5 years ago? I'd say no. He was a guy with a bunch of money. Now Blaze TV has some of the biggest names out there, you know? I mean, it has Beck and Levin and Steven Crowder. They're all part of the Blaze TV group.
Mm.
Um, and they're constantly expanding and expanding and expanding. So I think that capitalism is still strong, and a small group can grow. You know,
well from the but if what about the narrative? Like the narrative that's being spun that can be spun by a company like Sinclair versus trying to insert some dialogue that balances the narrative. I mean, is that possible as well?
well, your dialogue has to be convincing and correct. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
ultimately, that's what it comes down to. So a week ago on Tuesday, we have a thing in this town called Trump Tuesday, and a bunch of Democrats get together and protest Trump. Okay.
Wow.
And we are about 70% Republican in my community. Okay. So that's pretty strong Trump territory. But still, 30, 40, 50 people with no abortion or pro abortion signs and save Mueller and, Hillary's our godsend, please prop her up some more, whatever. Okay. They have these signs and they're standing along the side of the road. So I went down and talked to them and tried to reason with a few of them. Okay. And it was difficult, but just me being there, one guy threw
Mm-hmm.
off this group of 40 people protesting. I mean, a bunch of them sat down, didn't want to talk, stepped back from the road. It threw off their whole Trump Tuesday, tell you what. Okay.
Hmm.
Because it's like that fly in the ointment. Okay. Or more so, the fly in the honey. Okay. If a bug lands in your honey, are you still going to eat it?
The bug or the honey?
Not that
Both.
part of the honey.
But right. But that kind of turns you off from the whole honey pot.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Right.
So you've got to kind of be that bug. You've got to be out there making noise. And if you're convincing enough, you can convince enough people not to eat the honey. Or that you taste good because you're covered in honey, one or the other.
Right.
Wow, this is escalating. I like it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Love bugs and honey.
Mm.
No, but my point is one little thing can throw off the whole batch. So
Yeah.
either you have to be repulsive enough, like Alex Jones, to make the whole other side go, "Whoa, look at that guy there," and then everybody looks at you, and then people start looking at you and going, "Oh, I like what they say."
Mm-hmm.
Right.
You know, like, I mean, Alex Jones has millions and millions of people following him, and his whole premise is, you guys are all turning frogs gay, and then people are like, "What?" And then he's like, "No, seriously," and then people are like, "Seriously?" And a couple of people are like, "Totally, man, they're turning the frogs gay."
Yeah.
So you either do that tactic or you go out there and you try to promote what you believe, and you hope that people like what you're saying. Really.
Well,
Yeah.
one of the things that I think social media does is, it really opens people up to this global perspective, or so they think, right? And that's one of the big things about all those followers a lot of people have is they're not local. And when I say local, I mean, city, state, nation. How important is it for anyone outside of America to be hearing what we have to say about what's going on? Is it relevant out there? Do their opinions matter? Do we give a shit what that part of the world has to say about what's going on here?
Ask Theresa May how much she likes Donald Trump today.
Well,
He was very nice to her after she resigned.
And yeah, so that's kind of what it comes down to is we've changed the elections in personally, I believe France. We've changed the Brexit deal. We've kind of opened the door there. We've changed the elections in Australia. Numerous countries across the world are seeing this. We're seeing a huge anti-Trudeau movement in Canada. So I don't think that Juan Guaido in Venezuela would have as much support as he did had it not been for Donald Trump getting elected to office and having social media impacting that. I mean, the 12 people that have internet in Venezuela right now are like, hey, look what's going on outside the world. So
Yeah.
I think that social media really impacts that, and it allows that free flow of thought. Thought can move, thought can be transferred. Um, there's a very famous line about terrorism, and it didn't initially result in terrorism, but it was talking about terrorist ideas. Okay, that, and I'm going to paraphrase. So the reason we can't stop terrorism is because terrorism is not a place. I cannot bomb haters or the idea of hatred for the United States.
right.
I cannot kill all this, but it will move and it will change every time I try to. You see, so I believe that more of these same principles can be applied to social media. So you cannot stop these ideas because they will change, they will morph. If you take down Facebook, if you take down Twitter, if you take down Instagram, you're still going to have these ideas out there, and they're going to change, they're going to morph, they're going to move. And, you might silence them for a little bit, but there's a right-wing movement in China going on that nobody talks about,
Well,
and that's nuts. That's nuts.
Yeah.
Okay, if you're like, hey, I like freedom, and you're in China,
Yeah.
sorry. Like,
isn't that kind of a common thought in the back of most people's minds? I like freedom, but I'm in China.
yeah, but I'm in China.
But do we really want that? I mean, does that not like
Freedom in China? Yeah.
no, not that. I'm talking more
No, we don't want
about.
that.
Do we really want freedom in China?
Do we want our policy arguments, our broken, what we here in America see as many broken or out of whack things in our politics, in our democracy? Are we really that excited about spreading that democracy to other places and getting people to stand up and act like their country should act more like America? When look at us, I mean,
I
we're
would
so
say
fractured.
ask any random person off the street in Venezuela or Syria and ask them whose politics are more fractured.
Well, I can see your point there.
We are
I'll
more
concede
stable than a majority of the world. But we call her. It's like, why do you watch the Murray Povich show or Jerry Springer? Okay, you watch it for the drama, and we are obsessed. Do you know who Tool is? I love the band Tool.
Yes.
Oh
Okay?
yeah.
Schism.
Tool has they have
Yeah.
Schism and Vicarious. and
That was
vicarious.
great. So,
They talk about how we have this need for this drama, you know, and that's true. That's true.
mhm.
We have this need for this drama. So I don't think 5 years ago, and I still don't think today, that people really had that passionate burn for, let's say, abortion. I think 80% of of America were pretty complacent in it. Honestly, I think that you had your views, but you kept to yourself. But now that it's a mainstream issue, people talk about it a lot. People bring it up a lot. People protest about it a lot. I see pictures of coat hangers with crosses through them
Mhm.
right now uh, at all sorts of places here in town. But that idea is not a mainstream idea, even though it's talked about a lot. Because if that fell from the headlines, if people stopped um, promoting it, if it just kind of faded a little bit for a year, let's say, you wouldn't hear anything of it except by the far left and the far right extremists. So right now it's a drama point. People can argue and scream and screech about it and post pro or anti things on Twitter and on Facebook. Um, so I think most of these are just for fun because we're all bored. We're Americans. I mean, we're the richest country in the United States. I don't know what you guys
We
make for a
are.
living,
We're the
okay?
richest country in
But
the United States.
if yeah, we are the richest country in the United States. If you make $15 an hour in the United States and you work full time, here's
Mhm.
a statistic: if you make $15 an hour or more and you work full time, you are in the top 1% of the world
Yeah.
gross money monetarily yearly. I mean, 33,000 a year puts you in the top 1% of the world.
Yep.
That's not a lot. Like they want to make that McDonald's wages.
Yeah.
So that's where I come from. I go, no, we need to eliminate the minimum wage and allow the free market to go crazy. But that's a whole nother topic.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, we are the richest country in America, and you can quote me on that.
I
There you
will. I'll
go.
be sure to.
Jesus Christ. So, well, okay, so that's you say that, and then I ask you this: if I were to tell you that sitting very close behind us as an economic entity is Amazon, Walmart. So when you rank economic entities in this world, yeah, the U.S. is right up there in the top five, but so are two of the biggest corporations in the world. So you know, we're talking corporations that can buy governments, that can, that can buy our government. I mean, when it's all said and done, right? So, we can't take the money out, and if we don't take the money out, how do the voices get heard, right? Would you not agree with this, John? That to a certain extent, the money buys the votes more, and the legislation more than the people. Am I correct?
Well, I mean, I think the money definitely makes your voice louder than someone else who's not, giving money. So yeah, there's definitely truth to that.
And I mean, that holds true for even entities outside the United States. I mean,
Mm.
we've seen now that countries can have impacts on elections because, and what do? I've heard you say this, John. Well, we it's not like we don't do the same thing. We just haven't been caught or it hasn't been publicized. But, so what difference does it fucking make if we're the richest country in the world? It only means that the power is in the money. And I don't know that I have enough of it to have enough power just for living my own life. You know what I mean? That's still a line we have to walk. I mean, it's
Mm.
it's tough knowing that there's an expectation of what my life should be like in this richest country in the world, and realize that there are so many people even further down than me that struggle to
Mm-hmm.
maintain and feel like they live in a third world country.
So
Have
the solution: you cash out and you move to the Philippines.
No, I don't want to leave. I don't want to leave. I like the comfort of America. Calm down. I, I haven't given up the
So
fluffy
so
bathrobe
then
yet.
let's ask this. Uh, so you sell your house, you sell your car, you sell your clothes. Now you have one pair of clothes and a pair of shoes and a pack of cigarettes to your name, okay? And you decide you're going to move to Australia, okay? Australia is a fairly well-to-do country. It's
Mm-hmm.
stable, it's put together, I would say, but it doesn't have a huge population. So you don't have this global influence. You don't have Russia, you don't have China, you don't have the United States really pressuring it into any specific, Amazon is not like, oh man, if we can get that Australian market, we'll be doing great. Okay. So for the most part, their votes are yes or no by the people,
Mm.
right? More than money. Uh, why wouldn't you choose to live in Australia as opposed to the US? The
Um,
people get more say.
well, you know, I am a citizen of the United States. I was born and raised here in America. This is my home. This is my country, right? I mean, that's one of the biggest reasons why I stay in America. I mean, don't think I haven't considered leaving America, and thought, this would be. I mean, I could see myself out in the middle of nowhere in Canada, when the shit hits the fan. I'm like that. Nobody wants Canada. It'll be a while before anybody decides there's some reason to go into Canada, right? They're going to take them over because they need nice people in the army.
Oil. Canada
well,
has
Yeah.
lots of
well,
oil.
well, eventually, right? But there's other civilized places to rape first, right?
Fair
So,
enough.
um, yeah, it's been a contemplation, but I mean, I'm an American. I get that. I like the comforts that we have here. I like the freedoms that we have here. Now, I will say this: the mistake I would not make, and I do not make, whenever I look at the freedoms that we have here in America, is I don't impose those on other countries. Right? I
Mm-hmm.
don't impose that mindset when I look at what somebody's doing. So when I hear about what's going on in the UK, for instance, as they limit what is legal from a speech standpoint and an action standpoint, etc.,
Yeah.
I still bear in mind one fucking thing. They do not have the same Bill of Rights we do. They do not have the same freedoms we do. I look at Australia and their stringent gun laws, and I remember they do not have the Bill of Rights that we do. They are a different government. So if I did go there, I would have to take that one thing packed with me always, is that knowledge that I'm leaving freedoms and
So if
giving myself.
money,
Uh-huh.
if money controls the government, why do you still have those freedoms? These people with money and power must allow you to have those freedoms.
Well, it's interesting how it controls it, right? There are different ways it controls it. So if we look at the NRA, for instance, the NRA is a group on the outside of government that wants to fight and make sure the government doesn't try and step on things, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's balances. We have a checks and balances system, and surprisingly enough, it extends beyond the government. Our free parts of our free enterprise work as a checks and balances against that. But lobbying dollars do impact things such as media conglomerates able to soak up so much of the media and pump a narrative out, thereby not infringing on free speech, but we don't have a right to listen to unfettered free speech, right? Or disingenuous free speech. So when someone is controlling the narrative, there's nothing to protect us from that, and so we don't want the government to get involved in protecting one way or the other on this, right? If we're truly libertarian, it becomes a catch-22. But I wouldn't walk away from it because somewhere in there we still manage to fight for it, and the corporate dollars do it on both sides of the fence. But when we talk about a rich country, yes, this is a very rich country. But where
Mm-hmm.
the money is at is indicative of the voices that are heard in this country as well.
So I would say this goes back to a nature versus nurture. Okay, so are you inclined? Are you built the way you are and you believe what you believe based on how you were born? You are ingrained in your system. You want to be free. You don't want to be controlled, as opposed to somebody who says, hey, I'm submissive. Why are you submissive? Why are you willing to be controlled by the government?
Mm-hmm.
Or are you raised that way?
Oh,
You were raised in Oklahoma. So is that why you lean right or
well,
libertarian?
no, and it's definitely, I definitely believe it's how you're raised, and I think, which is a big reason why I like this show that John and I, because I think a lot of it has to do with the time that you grow up in as well. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
when I was growing up, there was not this idea of disingenuous media out there. It wasn't like we were sitting around hearing fake news all the time. We had limited news sources, we had very defined news sources, and we could see them as objective as they reported on the news from our perception, right? Um, but as far as there was ideas of community that we've lost. I've watched these things change. Yeah, I had this idea of growing up and respecting authority, which I don't believe is taught as much as it used to be, but I also see where part of that was a brainwashing to allow authority to have more impact in my life, right, from a governmental standpoint. And then as I've gotten older, I've realized that I don't think my voice factors into it the way it used to be promised, the way it used to be looked at, the way it used to be talked about in this country. Yeah, it's definitely how you were raised. It's the nurture,
So
not the nature.
where does this? You say you were taught to respect authority. So now I would say that that is a more like socialist-esque tactic. You see what I'm saying? Big brother, big government, trust these people that are controlling you rather than being
Well,
independent.
well, from a respect authority standpoint, it was the kind of thing that if an officer of the law, for instance, walks up to you, you address him as sir and you listen to what he has to say because he's an authority figure. If a teacher walks into the classroom, you give your attention to the teacher. She's an authority figure. It was this basic concept of respecting authority, right? There's a person in a senior position in the room, someone who needs to speak, whatever, something's going on, et cetera, et cetera. But this idea that, when it starts to branch into, okay, well, how much of my privacy are you going to invade on to assert your authority? Then it begins, there's where I see the line being crossed. And I get it. No, I don't say capitulate to all authority because we were also being taught in school about the history of this country and the various ways in which people fought back against what was happening in this country and made change through activism, through
Mm-hmm.
standing up and speaking out. But when dollars speak louder than the grassroots voice, if you will, it makes you wonder how much impact the grassroots voice will ever have,
So
unless it's larger.
you talk about that line being crossed. So that line is perception, right? Everybody perceives that line in a different location. So what the goal with the grassroots needs to be, these movements, whether it be Freedom Scoop, whether it be the NRA, these are all the same sort of ideas. We are trying to move other people, other voices, so we can all agree on one line and we can say, this is the line. Do not cross that line. And when you look at it, the line is a mile wide, right? There's all these different people. Some people say, hey, if the government says we're going to put a camera in your house, but we're going to have the cops there the second somebody breaks in without you having to pick up the phone. Some people say, great, sounds great. Put a
Mm-hmm.
camera in my house. I don't care if you see me in my underwear. But other people would say, I don't want a camera near my house. I don't want you knowing anything to do with my house. And if somebody breaks in, I don't want the cops to come because I'm going to deal with it myself. So that
Mm-hmm.
line is this wide. And the goal is to bring that line to a point where everybody can agree on where that line needs to be. Now, it might be kind of wider or narrower depending on how you go or what the issue is. Like whether it be school choice, for example. Some people say, well, schools need to be, the money needs to follow the student. So the line might be pretty narrow there. But on the flip side, if you're talking about how much control the government has over multinational corporations, big media conglomerates like Sinclair, maybe the line's a little wider. But the point is we have established boundaries. We don't want it to go way over here. We don't want it to go way over there. So I think that these grassroots movements are here to establish boundaries. We want to establish where the line is. Do not cross the line. And yeah.
So do we? Would I be wrong in saying that we, and I speak from the standpoint of constituency, whether on a, we lost John. Did you?
We lost John.
There he is.
Nope. There he. Oh,
He's
I
trying.
saw his mic go off. Somebody was talking to him, I think.
Oh, there's a party going on, probably.
Yeah.
The,
John's having a party.
The communists are crashing in.
That's right. Yeah, sorry about that, guys. I don't know what happened. That was weird.
I think the Young Turks hacked you.
Shit, you may have made me lose my train of thought, John.
I really considered when I came on putting the Young Turks on the TV behind me just to piss some people off.
Oh, that would have been funny.
I was like, oh, I should do this. Then I was like, nah, I don't even want to support their show, so I'm not going to put it on.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, how much responsibility do you think politicians should have, or can we demand from them to interact with grassroots, to interact with, I don't know, these public forums, these new media open debates that are going on? Should we be okay expecting a certain level of interaction, almost to where we could demand it? Because we pay the bill, right? We pay their salaries.
Well, I think people are complicit, and people are generally boring creatures. I think that's noticeable because we take companies like CNN who move to a shock jock position, right? They're very Howard Sterny, they're saying outrageous things 24/7, which should, in theory, just have the whole Democrat base enamored, but it doesn't. Instead, it turns a lot of people off, and that's why we see Turner Media and some of these companies slowly fading. Okay. Fox takes people off the air who are extreme right, and they put on more moderates, and they're still doing pretty good. So I think for the most part, we're boring people. We don't really want to listen to shock jocks 24/7. And I think the politicians, a lot of them try to be these vibrant, shocking people, and then the other ones just try to be kind of there. And I don't really see grassroots, regardless of whether they're shock jockey or not, getting attention of the politicians, because the politicians want to go on these big networks. They want to go on whatever they want to be on the popularity contest. The guy with 300,000, 400,000, 500,000 Twitter followers. So I don't see them being as engaged with grassroots, and I don't expect them to without some sort of government interference, which I don't want.
Mm-hmm.
So your question was, how do we get politicians to engage with grassroots? I don't think there's a way. I really don't. I don't see a clear-cut path, because we're not doing public lynchings of our congressmen anymore. I mean, not that we ever were, but you get what I'm saying. I mean, right. I mean, maybe the only way to do it is to go back to the Hamilton, Aaron Burr days and start having public duels. I mean, that would get them engaged. People would be totally engaged then.
Right.
I don't see that happening either, though.
Once upon a time, there was an idea that you could
Hey, John, your mic's off.
Yeah, no. There.
Once upon a time. Sorry, Robert.
There was this idea that you could write to your congressman, right? You sit down, you could write them a letter and mail it off, and there was an expectation that your congressman was going to read it, right? And you know, there's still that idea today that you can reach out and you can tweet to your congressman, you can do this, you can do that, whatever, and we still have this idea that they're going to see it. But how much of that, a lot of that just goes by the wayside. I would assume, that's never viewed by the person who is actually trying to reach. Um, should that not be an expectation of the job that at least addressing or reading constituent input is an expectation? Like, stop sitting around talking to lobbyists and spend some hours a day going through constituent interaction. At least reading it, at least hearing what your people have to say, because that's a big part of their fucking job, isn't it?
Should be. So I would say, do you do the Gen Gap podcast because of wanting to affect your congressman, congressional person, your representative, or do you do it to engage the viewers, to get them informed or entertained, and that's really where I would say most of these grassroots movements try to focus on the people who are in them
Mm-hmm.
and expanding those groups and the people that are in them. And I think that is essentially where you need to go, where we need to go. Alternative media needs to move in the direction of the people. I think that a lot of the time it is. Um, I said on Jay Edgar's podcast the other night, uh, every person who tunes in every week is important. I know you guys
Mm-hmm.
know a few of them by name. I can think of a few that I've never even seen or talked to, like Seawall, for
Yeah.
example, out there. He's probably in the chat. I don't know. Um,
Not yet.
and
Not now. No.
not now, but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah. Definitely.
there are these people, every single one of those people, they they matter. That's what really matters. And I think that's what alternative media needs to focus on, is those people. Now,
Mm-hmm.
that's how you affect people like Swalwell, like Steve Daines. He's one of my senators here in town. You don't affect him by having Fox News write a hit piece on him. Sure, yeah, but they're going to blow it off as Fox News wrote a hit piece on whoever, on on them. But if you have these small organizations with these very engaged people who really like this person, fanatical almost people, uh, speaking out, that's how you get stuff done. That's how you get movement. That's how you get organizations like Black Rifle Coffee Company,
Mm-hmm.
who people buy their coffee not because it's the best coffee. Don't man, it's okay, but they buy their coffee because they like their morals, because they get
Yeah.
things moving. You know, um, I don't know. I'm rambling
No,
on
no,
and
no.
on
That's
and
a
on. Just shut this guy up. Oh my
no. That's a.
God.
But no,
Hey,
that no.
I
That's an
do have
excellent point.
pants on, by the way.
Oh, the big reveal. It's
Well,
actually not that
What?
big. I just squint a little bit to. But
I
no, it
know.
was good.
you would be
Okay.
checking him out.
You
Hey,
Jesus.
said you said I'd
if
be
it's
great in a
available, you gotta
debate
see
because
it.
I'd throw some random thing out there. So yeah,
Yeah,
like my
yeah,
pants.
it's true. Gotta
No,
break
All
someone's
right.
chain of thought.
no, that wasn't bad rambling because it illuminates a point. I mean, it's it is an idea that media like input coming from a paid by the people source. So like of course we talk about media, we talk about what we're doing, and of course there is always the underlying goal of being monetized, of making a success of this, and of course that equates to money. It's like one hand washes the other when it comes to the evils of money, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's so this idea that it's funded by people, right? It's people saying, "Hey, here's my dollars. I want to hear more of your voice. Here's my dollars. I want to hear more of your voice." Um, is a good counter to lobbying to a certain extent. Um, it's just the scale it's got to come to. I believe is the harder part. I mean, am I right there? Is it?
Lobbying is a very capitalist idea on its face, because it's somebody who's created a business out of people that have their ideas and opinions. They're capitalizing, they're using those ideas and opinions to separate the person from their money. You know what I'm saying? So if I'm the coffee cup lobby, I want to get dollars from those people so I can push my coffee cup ideas. So it's very capitalist in that sense. Even though we consider it government, we say, "Oh, those dollars are big, big donor dollars or big money dollars or whatever." But it's really it's a business. It's a business, and if we don't like those businesses, we just have to stop supporting those businesses. Let those businesses fail. Let them go bankrupt. Um,
Is that where
now,
grassroots has the most impact? Is impacting like the market mentality of the everyday people, so that we look at those companies as more as a whole collective and say, okay, maybe we need to step away from this company as a collective.
yeah, yeah. So a big thing that happened last night was CrossFit. I don't know if you guys saw what happened with CrossFit.
No.
Uh,
Mm-mm.
they're a big exercise company, I guess. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know too much about them. But yesterday, or last week per se, they had a group with 1.9 million members on Facebook just taken down, disappeared.
Mm-hmm.
And amid some petitioning and some lobbying on their half, it was restored. But today and yesterday, they issued a press release late last night that said, hey, uh, we are from now on taking down all of our sites on Facebook, on Instagram, any Facebook tied company, they're gone. They pulled their dollars from. They said anybody who supports this organization um, should do the same. So, because I would consider Facebook a super PAC at this point, they are a type of political action committee, you know, um, as a conglomerate, as a group. But what they do is they take those phrases, those sayings from both sides of the aisle and amplify them. You see,
Right,
so
exactly.
they're not a PAC as in the traditional sense of uh, vote for Trump, vote for Hillary, vote for Al Gore, whatever. They're vote for this person or that person or that person. They're just amplifying that noise. So CrossFit did the right thing and pulled their money.
Yeah.
And I think that uh, you're going to start seeing that. You're going to start seeing groups like Facebook, or maybe I don't know. Let's say Facebook. Facebook decides, hey, we're going to donate 5% of our advertising revenue to Planned Parenthood, and people say, well, I don't really agree with that. So you either go on Facebook and keep supplying them with that money, or you switch to something like Twitter or a different source.
Or maybe
Um,
Gab, even.
Gab,
Yeah.
Andrew Torba. Yeah, go Andrew.
Oh,
Okay,
yeah.
So,
but see that goes back to my question. Yes, okay. When we talk about letting the free market sort everything out, so like by what you're saying, Jake, Facebook is not too big to fail. They can fall apart,
no.
and then they
Mm-hmm.
can go away, but it's going to create a vacuum, right? And something's going to
Mm-hmm.
have to come in to fill that, and all those advertising dollars are going to go somewhere, and somehow that void is going to be filled. Whether it's much like anything, being destroyed, is going to have small pieces all scattered around, and then it's going to start to coalesce again into a large entity. Somebody's going to be getting that money. How do we? I mean, what's to stop the Gab stop Gab from turning into Facebook, the next conglomerate, the next too big to fail in delusion world um, media outlet, or social media platform.
Do you remember your first friend on MySpace?
Tom.
I do. Tom.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what Tom's doing right now for a living? He
Nothing, right?
retired with like $265 million after
Yeah.
tax. And now what he does for a living is he posts his photography on Facebook. How ironic
That
is
is
that?
awesome.
That is kind of
Okay.
ironic.
So I don't foresee these groups, now that they've become really fading away forever, but I see that the cyclical pattern will change. Now, maybe Gab is, let's say, right-leaning dominant, and it doesn't seem to be gaining the traction. But some of these smaller groups, like Parler or like Twitch, Twitch is huge right now. Okay,
Mhm.
which way does Twitch politically lean? The community as a whole.
As far as I've seen, it's pretty left. I would say so, especially Twitch. Like Twitch's terms of service are pretty strict when it comes to things you can say, or even like a little bit of cleavage. you
But
know.
see, a lot of that is how does it lean? And people have to think about that. You have to pause for a second. You know what I mean? And I
Hmm.
think that these groups are going to start building like that. We're going to see organizations like Twitch, like Parler, emerge. Parler was a really big one for a little while. I got really excited about it. Created a Parler account, and then their infrastructure was crap.
Mm.
So yeah, that was the only problem with them. I would log into my account, and it would take like 45 seconds to populate my profile photo,
Oh
and to
man.
get my timeline would take like another 2 minutes. I think they've fixed some of those issues by now, but I think we're seeing these groups emerge, and we're seeing some of these too big to fail giants start to fail. Um,
Hmm.
Now, Facebook strategy is going to have to be moving to other markets like China, which they are. They're trying to move into China, trying to move into Japan and Korea and India. Um, and when they fail, somebody else will take their place. They always do, you know.
Oh yeah.
First it was bingo parlors, and then it was, bowling alleys and community organizations, centers where people could talk, could
Hmm.
mingle. And then when the internet came, the internet became the ultimate bingo parlor. I mean, we're all just sitting around doing nothing, picking our noses, waiting to win something.
Yeah.
Really, that's all we're doing on the internet. And yeah, so either something will replace it, the web, or another organization will come and just keep expanding and expanding and expanding. But how long were bingo parlors there for?
I
Oh,
don't know. I
they're
think they're still around
well,
some places.
they have bingo every week at the VFW.
At
Well,
the
yeah, that's true.
VFW.
Yeah.
You would know
Yeah.
about that, right, Robert?
Well, I pass by one whenever I drive down the street.
Ah, okay. It was an age joke, but that's all
It
right.
was.
Yeah, and see how
He didn't get it because he's
I
old.
deftly avoided it by just. You see, I know where you're going. I get it. I've
Yeah,
been
he's
to.
used to trying to dodge old man jokes.
Yeah,
So
it's given me gray hair.
to go on a totally different tangent, here's a question. Here's something that I was thinking about the other day. We spent thousands of years in the Bronze Age, right?
Right.
Hmm.
And the Stone Age, right? What age are we in now?
Information age, I believe.
We're in the Steel Age.
That was a while ago.
We're
Maybe.
still in the Steel Age.
I don't know. I've
Because
always heard it called information age, but maybe I'm wrong.
that's a colloquial term, but
Okay.
ages are dictated by the materials that we use to
Mm.
create and to build. So back in the day, we carved everything out of stone. Our houses were
Right.
stone, our wheels were stone, our brains were stone. And then it was bronze, and bronze revolutionized everything. So if we're in the information age, then that would say that the internet has surpassed steel's functionality in life.
Hmm.
But I would say that everything you use is made out of steel. So we're still in the steel age. So we really haven't progressed past, what would that be? When did we start really using steel? 1,500 years ago is when it kind of emerged, I guess, right? But
Yeah. No, not.
bulk 700 years ago, maybe.
Yeah, maybe. Like that. As soon as we
And
can
in
start
the
making
last
swords out of it.
industrial revolution, yeah. So we're still in the steel age. So we're not as advanced. We're still just monkeys that have metal. Ooh, that would be a good band name. Monkeys with metal.
But
Yeah, that would
but
be kind of
doesn't
good.
Yeah.
Let's
wouldn't
start it.
Would you
Geese
not
with metal.
would you not say that technology makes a big difference? So for being in the steel age, 100 years ago versus being in the steel age now, those are two entirely different beasts, right?
Hmm.
There are a lot of people that can use that information, that technology more in their day-to-day life than they do steel, right? Like go off the
So,
radar, build yourself a log cabin, that kind of thing, and just have a device that you touch base with the outside world.
so
And
you would have to say that wars are no longer fought with steel, but they're fought with technology.
Hmm.
in a lot of
Have we
senses,
crossed that
that's true.
barriers?
Well, in a lot of senses, yes. Think about drones. I understand what the drones are built out of, but how are the drones being used? I mean, it's technological advancement that's made that possible. And that's, how many drone strikes did Obama make during his presidency? You
Few,
know,
Yeah,
like at least 3 or 4.
at
eh,
least 3 or 4. Yeah.
a day.
Three
So,
or four.
um, you
I
know,
like how we all got uneasy for a second. We're shifting in our chair, like, did we just say that about that guy? I hope he's not listening anymore.
it's because
Anymore. Yeah.
it's
Anymore.
because he was the first African American president. I think is what it is.
Hey,
You're right.
are you talking? You just don't
Kenyan
like him because
American.
of his eye color.
Kenyan
That's right.
American. His what color are
Kenyan
his eyes?
American.
He has eyes?
Yeah,
I could never get past the ears.
that's true.
I was like,
Yeah.
what is that? Is that Curious George or is that President Obama? I don't know. I
Dumbo,
can't
obviously.
say.
He's about to take flight.
Hey, that's why he can hear you so well.
That's
Yeah.
He
right.
doesn't need the NSA.
But so
I'm dying.
but this idea that social media,
Death.
I still think it's
Ugh.
underutilized. I think it's underutilized for the current population, for the current citizenry, for our, expected representative system. It is completely misutilized versus how it could be. I mean, how much more representative of a democracy can we become if we apply technology in the proper way? Now, I understand the perils of an absolutely true democracy, don't get me wrong, where, we are going on popular vote for everything. But on the flip side, I don't know. I think it's underutilized,
See,
I
I,
should say.
I think we should eliminate popular vote for president, personally. Uh, I think that we are a constitutional republic, and if we truly believe in the republic, then your vote should be cast by your senator, representative, et cetera, because right now we have these games that we play with all your hanging chads in Florida where they're like, well, popular vote says that these 72 people may have meant to vote for Gore. And
Right.
we're like, wait, did they or did they not? What does that matter? What about the delegates, the people that we put in power to actually cast the electoral vote? You know what I'm saying? So your vote should count for your electoral votes, for your
Hmm.
that's the other thing is we don't really know who our electors are. And we should. I mean, I think it should go and maybe this is a rewrite of the whole constitution, but it should go like you vote for your mayor and then your mayor goes and votes for your senator and your senator goes and votes for your president. You see what I'm saying?
Mm.
Rather than the way we have it now. But that's just really complicated. And that's a
Yeah.
true republic.
Well, it's I look at I look at things like the popular vote, and I have to ask, I mean, John, when it comes to the popular vote, when we're deciding to cast vote for the president, let's just talk about the president, not on a lower
Mhm.
level, right?
Mhm.
If we take are we still at such an unbalanced point with our population that we can't take a popular vote from the country to determine president without it being, oh, New Yorkers are going to sway it, California's going to sway it? Isn't it still representative of how many people go out there and vote, and it's more important to make that happen?
Yeah, I don't know. This is one I've always gone back and forth on with the whole electoral college. But I tend to lean towards the system that we have now, mainly due to not wanting mob rule to determine who gets to be president. Because the president's supposed to represent everyone, and so I just think that's yeah. I just think the popular vote is too simplistic and uh, there's too much danger of someone just particularly charismatic just swaying enough people and only going to the large population areas to convince them, like New York or LA, like everyone talks about. So yeah, I mean, I lean towards keeping the electoral college for sure.
Well, wouldn't that just couldn't we just require stricter campaign expectations, stricter campaign regulation? You have to take the message across the country. I mean, you have to go and put that message out there, right? I mean, you can't just go pander to 5 states in the United States as a presidential candidate. You've got to get out there and talk to everybody.
I mean, I wouldn't want to be putting tons of regulations on how someone has to run their campaign. Like the campaign finance laws are fine. Maybe we need to add more to that, more transparency at the very least to that. But no, I don't think we should put regulations on where they can or can't potentially uh, go out and pander as they do.
So if you have a lady with a basket and she's walking through an apple orchard and you say, collect apples and I'll pay you by the pound, right?
Mm-hmm.
And she's too short to reach any of the apples, but she can easily go up and kick the tree and the apples that are ripe will fall to the ground, right? So she does this
Mm-hmm.
every morning. You're not going to get a majority of the apples because she's doing it the easy way. She's just kicking the tree, whatever land on the ground she's picking up. These
Right.
are like the people who will go to the polls a majority of the time. They're people who are working in government, who maybe are near the polling office, who are very engaged, the far right, the far left, et cetera, et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
But within that, you're going to get a lot of these bad apples that fell the night before on the ground that are spoiled. So the Electoral College is more like having somebody with a ladder out there. And he's going to be able to look at the apple and go, okay, this tree produced, this many apples, and these are the good ones that we should pick. And this tree produced those apples, and these are the good ones that we should pick, rather than the lady just kicking a tree and taking all the apples off the ground. That would be my analogy. I don't know. Picking apples.
Well,
Pick lots.
I have trouble, and maybe it's because I overthink it, which it probably is. But when you talk about mob rule
Mm-hmm.
versus a representative, the electoral college, I see the ultimate goal being the same for both. The electoral college is to get in a sense, the popular vote at a representative level, right? So this many votes are going to go to this president for representing this many people, but it's still, in a sense, the popular vote based off the number of votes that are coming in that smaller locale. But they don't mean as much or they mean more depending on where they come from. This idea, that if we had no electoral college, wouldn't it work like the fair market where they competed for votes no matter where they were going to come from? The idea is to drum up as many votes as possible, not target 3 to 5 states where you think you can sway the most voters, as opposed to the person who goes out there and competes for all the votes across a wide and broad spectrum.
Hey, I think I like it because they go to Florida and they go to Pennsylvania and they go to Iowa. They leave me alone most of the time. I have never had to be in fear that a Bernie rally was going to be in my town,
Yeah.
So
Does that now that brings up an interesting question? Does that bother you, or would you? I mean, do you not want to see a presidential candidate that is willing to interact at that level? that
I'm an ostrich. I'll just put my head in the sand.
so you don't want to hear what any of them have to say. You want
Nope.
to. I gotcha.
I'm a Trump voter. That's all I say. I'm going to vote for him in 2028.
That's funny.
So you are a pro-Trump individual, is that correct? Are you saying
I
is that the stance you're taking right now?
I think that when you look at the options and the alternatives that we have right now, he is by far the best choice from the crop that we have. Now, I really liked Rand Paul, but Rand Paul had uh, uh, less than perfect odds, if we put it that way. Um, Not a big fan of the Yang Gang. Gotta just say that there, but but I don't think he's gonna have great odds either. So I think that there are a lot of people out there who are run just for the publicity, and I don't think that Trump initially ran for the publicity. I think that he ran because he was like, "Look, I want to win this." I don't think he really cared what like he didn't care about being it. He just wanted to win it. Just say, hey, look, I'm president. But then when he started running, he had to look at people's ideas and decisions and formulating his own thoughts. Whereas, do you think during the 2016 election, Hillary formulated a single thought?
Oh, no.
I don't think
Not
she
at all.
changed her stance on anything. I think it was rooted in her. I think Trump, however, over the past 4 years, let's say, has changed his stance based on what he has heard from feedback. He has heard people say this. So I really like that about him because ultimately a representative shouldn't have opinions. We shouldn't vote for a representative based on opinions. We should vote for a representative based on them doing what we want them to do. Because our thoughts are going to change,
Yeah, I mean, I can see some merit to that, yeah.
I got to
But I
throw
also...
something at my noisy kid. Just a second. Stop making noise.
Oh, man. Someone call CPS.
It's parenting. Quality parenting
It's
101.
an empty water bottle, and he threw it back at me.
That's not good for his environment.
That's
No,
right.
I know.
You're littering all over his environment.
Nature versus nurture. This is the nurture. Definitely not the nature, because the nature he lives in is not good.
But now you talk about Trump changing, but he started off, people called him were very much in line with him being a Democrat. That was what he was perceived at, and he changed party lines to run in the election. So how isn't that a very disingenuous place to start from to the point now where he does try and sway the public by his opinion?
But that's what you want ultimately, I think that that's one of the things that you want in a candidate. You want somebody who will change. I mean, if you're a libertarian, the libertarian philosophy is more leave me alone, right? Because you want to be able to change. You want to be able to do whatever you want and not have the government dictating what you can do. And I think the government then should change itself as well. So if your constituents want a dam built above their city and then they decide, nah, we want a flood, take away the dam, you want that representative to represent them and say, yeah, we don't want the dam or we want the dam. Flip-floppers, like George W. Bush was always told that he wore flip-flops. Remember that? During the campaign 2004, they were like, he's a flip-flopper. He's wearing flip-flops all the time. Anyways, but that was good because he would change. He would morph to your ideas. And I think the only idea that he didn't morph to was the Iraq War, which is kind of a big one. But, climate people would come after Bush, and Bush would say, sure, I'll sign a climate accord. And the Republicans were like, what? You didn't like that 3 years ago. But the people wanted it. I mean, essentially, a majority of the people. And that goes back to that mob rule or that majority of the people. Now, that also is the loudest voices. And that's the problem is we got to determine between the loudest voices and a majority of the people. What is it? Do we have a lot of people wanting this, or are they just really loud?
Mm-hmm.
Well, well, it's easy to, or, I don't know if you can see it from this perspective, but he, I don't get the sense that what he says he cares about, he really gives a shit about. Like, he makes policy for popularity
Yeah.
versus value, personal value. I don't see him as holding any personal value as these
No.
decisions. The only thing I see him purely passionate about is calling out the naysayers, right?
Yep.
That's what
And see, I like that. Though
but
that's what I like.
I like
you
that about him
you
too.
don't want to be able to feel like you can trust the decisions he's making to have your best interests at heart as an American
I
citizen.
think if my best interests align with the majority's best interest and we're loud enough, then he'll go to that. You see what I'm saying?
He'll just go where the drum's the loudest.
Right. That's the art of populism. So, ultimately, let's say a majority of people in the United States said, "Hey, we need to invade Canada tomorrow," and there was 250 million Americans saying, "We need to invade Canada tomorrow," and Trump said, "Sounds good. Let's take over Quebec." Okay. Uh, I think that would be a good policy because a majority of America wanted it.
Hmm.
Versus,
I don't know. We
like
tried
George.
that before. It didn't work out too well for us.
Isn't that the mob rule we're worried about when we're talking about the election?
Yeah, I mean that's not something I think would be a good idea. Like just because most people want to invade Canada, I don't think that's necessarily a good idea. It's not in America's best interest to do that. So
So
I don't know.
that's why we
Plus,
have an
then we have
electoral
Canada. So much
college.
that. Right,
And
right.
so that's why we have this large government with senators and representatives to slow that rapid change down.
Yeah.
But your representatives really need to be fluid like that. So if you're yelling at your representative, "Hey, invade Canada," then they can vote on that. And so that would be my determinant there. I don't think people are naturally intelligent. I think people are mostly dumb, and we have sparks of intelligence. I think that's true with me. I hope that's true with everybody else. But maybe there are people out there who are like, "Look, I'm brilliant all the time," but we're mostly dumb. So we rely on our government to try to balance that out, and the government's mostly dumb. So they have sparks of intelligence. So what we hope is we can sway their intelligence, those sparks, and we hope that they sway easy. So that's one of the things I like about Trump is he sways pretty easy. If everybody's yelling at him to do something, most of the time it's pretty dumb, but those sparks of intelligence sway easy. So we can move him.
So, so when he makes a move like I just saw an article. I didn't, a little bit. I read he used emergency action to push a sale through for guns with Saudi Arabia, involving the UK and Saudi Arabia and the United States gun sales, and he based it off of the threats that Iran has been making. And I'm like, pushing against sanctions and forcing the sale to go through using emergency action. Now, this is the kind of thing, though, is that the will of the people? I mean, is that, when he makes these kind of moves, where's the checks and balances there? How do we,
So the big point there then is we need to limit the power of the government, which I think we can all agree on. He has too much power, but he is a man and he's mostly dumb and has sparks of intelligence. So most of the things he does are probably going to be dumb, and we just got to accept that, especially if it's executive. He's using executive power, so most of his powers are going to be dumb. But we hope that we can make those executive powers more intelligent over time. And I don't know if that'll happen, but I don't see Biden being any better than Trump. I don't see. I mean, honestly, a lot of the lesser known candidates I don't see even. I don't know if you'd call like Kamala or anybody. There really isn't any Republican contenders this year. Nobody going against him to compare to. But
Hmm.
I don't know. Maybe Nader. Is Nader still running? Is
I
Nader
think
still alive?
I don't know. I haven't heard about him in quite some time. But no, I think isn't Bill Weld running? I
Can't
thought he
tell you.
was. I thought he was. I think he
Who's
is.
who's the guy Steven just entertained the other day?
Keenan
Keegan.
Dunham.
Keenan Dunham.
Yeah, he's
Okay.
going to be on our show next Monday.
So
Not this coming Monday, but the following one.
so Keenan's interesting because I watched that interview.
Yeah.
I've read through some of his stuff. He's interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
So I think that he deserves a voice. The question is his platform a big enough platform to move any sort of mass of people?
Yeah.
Uh,
That's not really something I wanted to bring up with him, but I'll talk about it here. No, I don't think so. I mean, I don't
Well,
think he's got a big enough platform where he is now, but I think having him, come on to our show and Steven's show and,
it's going to
maybe
help.
he'll be on someone else,
100%.
more
Yeah.
people will be I wasn't aware of him until he was on Steven's
No.
show, right?
Yeah.
So now several of us more are aware of him, and then we're
So
going to
now what
boost
you
it.
got to weigh is would somebody vote for Keenan over Trump?
I
And
might.
why?
I might just write him in.
So see, that's how grassroots movements,
Right.
that's how organizations like ours, that's how they grow.
okay.
And that's how you change political thought.
So, yeah, but
Yeah.
look at the system that guys like this have to fight, and I look at this even with Andrew Yang. Okay,
Yep.
I can get behind. I've said I can get behind some of what he's saying. I see,
Hmm.
I see some consistency in him that I always want to see in a candidate. That's the main thing, right? But Biden enters the race, and suddenly the 3% holding that he had slips to 1.5%, right? We see this shift as soon as Biden hits the race. Everybody expected it, right? But to get on the stage, right, you've got to have a percentage of voters, which means that you've got to be getting your voice out there to enough voters, which means that you've got to have the money, right? And to get the money, you have to have the notoriety. I mean, it begins this vicious cycle where the money is the root of how much any of these smaller party members can get their voice heard and get on the stage. Because if they can't get on the stage, I'm sorry, they're fucked. We all know the stage is the big thing. And then to get to the final stage, to get to the prime time, it's next to impossible. When was the last time we had a third-party candidate standing on the stage with the final two candidates?
The Bull Moose Party.
What year was that? I mean, is that a Rocky
19
Bullwinkle reference?
No. That's here, let me Google it. I gotta do some Googling.
I mean,
Bull Moose.
it seems like the way our system is set up, this control over the campaign process and the elections, etc., minimizes the opportunity for a third party to have a chance.
That'd be 1918? No, 1912.
Since a
Yeah,
third
so
party,
that was
That's
when
ridiculous.
Roosevelt won as the
Mhm.
Bull Moose. Teddy
Right.
won as the Bull Moose Party. It was the Progressive Party.
Hmm.
That was the last time a third party won in America.
so what you're saying is,
Wow.
since that happened, there's been a coordinated effort to keep it down to just a Republican and Democratic candidate that can be
Well-
controlled by the government.
Roosevelt was a Republican, and he didn't agree with the Republican Party platform, and so he started progressivism, which progressivism was a branch of the Republican Party that was later adopted by the Democrat Party and screwed up. And now it's this weird far left wing of the
Right.
of the Democrat Party, whereas before it was a center moderate But so that was 1912. It dissolved in about 1918, the Bull Moose Party, because everybody is like, who wants to be a moose? And the Canadians were like, me. And Americans were like, well, we don't vote for you Canadians. So that was the last time. So yeah, I would say we have not had a serious, well, I don't know. Do you consider like Barack Obama or Donald Trump to be a third party style contender? I mean, they came in from left field or right field, depending on how you look at it.
Sure, but they signed up for one of the primary parties and towed that line to a certain extent, right? I mean, Trump switched parties and towed the Republican line, and has tried to tow the Republican line ever since he got into office, right? Um, so no, I don't think any third party gets a fair shake. You've got to, you've got to
Would
succumb.
Nader, or let's say George Bush. George Bush runs as an independent. Nader runs as a Republican. Would Nader have beat Bush?
Probably,
It depends. Would
We
Bush
got
have
more
gotten?
primary.
Well, I guess it all depends on if Bush had swayed enough of the people by the time we have our, the primaries. That's what it really comes down to. It's how much
So
of the vote you're
is
going
it
to get.
the person or the party?
Oh,
I think at the moment it's the party, but I think that the internet is changing that very quickly, and I think we're going to start seeing more and more independents, or more and more third parties, at least, getting more attention.
Well, let me.
So, I mean, I think the next 15 or 20 years we'll see a third party on the, on the stage.
Well, let me ask you this, both of you, and you can both offer an opinion on this. So there's a Republican who just uh, is running for president, but he's not doing it on the Republican. He's doing it as I think did he go as a libertarian? God, I can't remember who it was off the top of my head. This was like last week. But anyway, he's not going to run on a Republican ticket. He's going to run on an independent. So, what's your opinion? Does the RNC try and shut him down?
No. I mean, obviously, I don't think they should. Whether or not they're going to, it might be. I don't know. It might be a good tactical move on their side, or a good strategic move, but I don't think that they should. No.
So the RNC is a PAC. So in my opinion, whatever PAC, I mean, if you're a member of the RNC, then yes, shut them down. If you're a member of the DNC, no, pursue them. If you're an independent, pursue them. But I think the other question you have to have, so I run a construction company here in town. I want people to be in the construction business, because competition breeds ideas, and ideas allow people to want to, let's say, remodel their kitchen. So just because you go to Joe Blow and you start talking about remodeling your kitchen, that his advertising promoted you to remodel your kitchen. And maybe you don't go with him next time. Maybe you go with me instead. So you see, it builds the industry. So multiple people in the industry. So that could be the effect. So your independent person might actually grow the Republican base.
Would you agree they stand a better chance than a third-party independent that's not been affiliated with the Democrat or Republican Party? Do they stand a better chance of getting on the stage than, say,
well, I think if they're already a name, so if there's somebody who, was in the Republican Party and then, leaves the party, right, through whatever means you use to leave the party, and then were to run independent, they might have a better chance than someone who just kind of comes out of the blue and says, hey, vote for me.
Right.
Got an example right here.
All right.
So 2016, Iowa happens, and Wisconsin happens, and Minnesota happens for the Democrats, and Hillary's starting to take these big voters, right? Bernie breaks off and launches independent. Okay? Who wins?
Now he would have.
He would have swayed a lot of votes away from the Democrats.
He would have been He would have been a third party on the stage, and that was what he needed to do when they stabbed him in the back.
Yep.
And instead, he chose to toe the party line. And
Yeah.
that is the failure that I will always hold over his head when I look at him
Yeah.
as
It
a
lost him a
potential
lot of
candidate.
respect.
That's
That's
that.
why he's down at 10% now, and Biden's at 19 or whatever. I mean, they're depending on the poll you look at. Some polls have
Yeah.
Biden at 26 and Bernie at like 23 or 22. But you get what I'm saying. He's below Biden because of that.
Hmm.
So
Absolutely.
is Biden carrying the let's get back to business as usual vibe for voters, or is he carrying the bouquet of Obama presidency for voters? I mean, what is it about? Because Biden doesn't. I can't picture him as being president. I was hard pressed to picture him as vice president. What is carrying him, and what's making him so popular?
Trump.
Yeah.
Is that it? Because we've got lots of candidates there that Trump, could be could set off just as easily as Biden. There's something about Joe
So
Biden that people
Romney's
like.
in office right now. Okay, so for some reason Hillary had a heart attack on the debate stage, and Romney decided to run last, in 2016, and he won the presidency. Oh, okay. So Romney's in power right now. Who does the Democrat Party put up against Romney? Not Joe Biden. Maybe a Sanders or a Kamala or
Yeah.
a Booker, but it wouldn't be
God.
Biden. If we didn't have Trump,
Yeah.
But
we
Biden,
wouldn't have Biden.
but if you're betting on Biden to revitalize an Obama era or stage an Obama era comeback to defeat Trump, I don't see it as realistic because it's not what you want to have happen. You don't want Joe Biden as president. I mean, I'm not feeling it. I mean,
I think people just think Biden knows enough about doctors because he's constantly in a doctor's office that maybe he'll revitalize the healthcare industry. I don't know.
I mean, the biggest
Clear.
difference the biggest difference I see between him and Trump is I don't necessarily see the strings attached to Trump.
Hey, just so you know, I've been drinking out of a mega cup this whole time.
That's awesome.
Jay, get that damn cup off our screen. What are you trying to get us shut down? Come on.
Trying to get us to monetize before we can even monetize. Come on.
Before we can even. Oh yeah, that's. Ugh.
Well, I don't.
So
It's fucked up, is what it is. I mean, I don't. The system is broken, even from the standpoint of if you set the RNC and the DNC aside, the structure of it all is just so. I don't know. I guess it's not a huge percentage that they have to carry of the vote to get on the stage, but still, yeah.
I think we're going to see the. I honestly believe a majority of the United States right now, a majority, not a plurality, but a majority of the United States is moving in either a. So have you heard the horseshoe principle?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so far righters are closer to far lefters than they are to the people in the middle. Okay,
Yeah.
and I think that we are seeing that libertarian ideas and philosophies are really grappling and taking root here in the United States. And I think people are going to move more towards libertarian ideas. I can't tell you how many people I heard in 2016 that said, man, I was going to vote for Bernie, but instead I voted for Trump.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
They're
And I mean, I didn't quite make it to Trump, but I was going to vote for Bernie.
That would be the dichotomy right there, this way or this way. And with Bernie, I say, hey, either I give up and I go on welfare and then everything's paid for, or I go with like Trump and everything's paid for because I'm going to work my ass off till I have no fingers anymore.
Right.
That's kind of what's happening. So I think that we are seeing that the Libertarian Party is more down here at the bottom of the horseshoe. So the horseshoe curves around, and we have people like Biden up here, and Trump's probably closer to the halfway mark. He's not to the Libertarian side, but he's not to the peak yet. And that's why we see Libertarians down here that are falling for people like like I shouldn't say falling for, that's not the right term, but we're seeing people that are libertarian that are leaning towards more Bernie type qualities. We see the AOCs of the world that are like, look, we just hate the big people that have all the money. And we see the people on the far right going, just leave the people who have all the money alone, right?
Yeah.
But I think that those two groups of people, as polarized as they are going to unite, and we're going to have more of a either leave me alone to do whatever I want. I've never understood why gay rights is not a Republican philosophy. Never
Yeah.
understood that. I've
Yeah.
never understood why the left and the liberals have taken on social issues of that sort, such as gay
I
rights.
mean,
I
I
would
think it was mostly a religious thing for Republican,
Yeah.
representatives. Like, a lot of them get elected, based on their religious values. So, I
Yes.
mean, even if they didn't really care if, gay people were getting married, I think they had to oppose it or had to
so
just not
how
talk about it as much as possible.
how did libertarians be grouped in with the right?
Well, I think a lot of libertarians do lean, at least lean right, for the most part, especially with how the Republicans are supposed to be, with wanting smaller government, getting rid of regulations in general, it being supposed to be anti-war.
So you would
Uh,
think that the large religious space would lean left, where they want a bigger government and they want government to uh, dictate and control based on commandments or tenets of the Bible. And then on the
uh,
flip side, you would think that you'd have a more libertarian, liberal area, more classical libertarian,
mhm.
um, classical liberal, where they, and that's a big jump that people don't think about anymore. Classical liberals are no
Right.
longer, I mean, we don't even talk about that. But anyways, you would think that
Sargon
you'd,
kind of brought it back for a while.
Sargon did, yeah,
Yeah.
until he was demonetized and banned and deplatformed and attacked by both the left and the right on every platform everywhere, except
Yeah.
probably by Andrew Torba and Gab.
Yeah, that's about it. Yeah.
So I think that we are going to see this dichotomy divulge where we have a more stringent religious group on the left that is for big government, and then we're going to see on the right a small government, leave us alone, more pro rights group emerge on the right. Um, but that is kind of the beauty of the US right now. We have the best of both worlds. I mean, you can be for freedom and do whatever you want in your own house and then be for giant government, which doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
And then you can be for, I want a small government, but I want you guys all to follow my 10 commandments. It's really weird.
Well,
Yeah, that
Really
is
weird.
strange.
yeah, we'll wrap this up, but I will
We're
leave
way
with
over on time.
no, we're
No,
right
we're
on
about
time.
2 minutes under, yeah, so we're about right.
But I will leave you with my theory about where even libertarians, I think, um, everybody tends to swing to the right as we get older, I believe.
Hmm.
So as you start to buy in to the American dream and you get that house, you get that car, you get married, you start to have a family. All of these, suddenly you're faced with all these value principles that you have to determine, you have to define, and you have to look at, where's my money coming from? Where's my money
Hmm.
going to? We have to look at how government is impacting that, and then moral decisions that are going to affect your children and their education, and then as they grow older, and their bodies and the whole thing. Between even the sexism. And how is government going to impact them? So we start to lean more right as we age, because we want to be more conservative and we want to protect what we have in this world.
Hmm.
And we tend to believe that those stronger, more restrictive values that the Republicans seem to preach are the ones that are going to do it for us. But, you know, That also it says that it's going to be small government, and I have yet to ever experience a small government. It's always been the same big fucking clusterfuck
Yep.
from one day to the next. But anyway, having said that, Jake, we appreciate you being here. So tell us again,
I am
where are we at?
wearing pants.
He is wearing pants,
in
confirmed.
folks. So
So
go ahead,
find
tell
me
us.
at freedomscoop.com, at RealJake1776 on Twitter. Find these guys and those guys, and both of those guys, on the Freedom Scoop or on the Twitter, because I like you guys and you need more Twitter people.
It's true. We do need more Twitter people, and you do like us. So
I like to be
so
Twitter.
both statements are true.
And
These are all true facts.
just a quick shout out and fuck you to Jay Edgar popping in and of course slamming me about my harebrained
With his harebrained theory.
At least I still have hair to brain. So there we
That's
go.
true.
Hey, John, we've got anything interesting coming up? It sounds like you've been doing some stuff. So can you give us a quick rundown of anything that's coming up in the next couple of weeks?
Absolutely. So Monday, this coming Monday, Memorial Day, I believe, we have Michael Uttery from Inalienable Podcast, or Unalienable Podcast, I think is what he calls it. So that'll be really good. And then the following Monday, we have Keaton Dunham is going to be on, who is a presidential candidate. I don't think he's part of the National Libertarian Party, but he is running as a libertarian, I think independent. So that'll be really cool. He's got some really interesting theories on space colonization and things like that. I want to kind of get into.
Yeah, I'm interested in touching those points too. Yeah.
Yep, definitely. And then I believe I have someone for next Friday as well. But let me check the little.
It's J. Edgar. Oh no.
He wishes.
Yeah, he does wish. No, he needs to ask to come back on. He should come back on. I can't find it right now, but yeah, someone else is going to be on Friday, I think. Either that, or we can do our UBI debate with Stephen Ignoramus. So I'll get in contact with him probably tomorrow.
It'll all be on the calendar, folks. You'll have access to that sometime right after never. So,
right.
But no,
I'll make a calendar for us, and we'll put it all together, organize it.
Well, you can catch us here. You can catch us on YouTube. You can look for us on Freedom Scoop, as he said. John, we can be found on Twitter where?
At the Gen Gap P.
We also
the extra P.
We also have some sort of server. We talk about things.
Yes,
people
we have a Discord server, which is down below. And while you're going down there, make sure you hit that like and subscribe on your way down, all the way down to Jake's pants. And then that he is wearing, confirmed. And so make sure you join our Discord server where we have a lot of really interesting discussions, a lot of fun. So we'll see you there.
And one thing I will point out about Jake's pants that's very important for all of our younger viewers who believe that's just a device to hold your pants around your fucking waist, your thighs. It actually goes around the waist, much like Jake is wearing it, to actually hold the pants up so your boxers aren't hanging out and your ass showing like a fucking baboon. I'm just pointing that out. Just thought I'd share. Having said that, folks, if you like what you're hearing, hit that like button. If you don't like what you're hearing, hit that like button so people can mock you. And hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. Check us out, as we've said, here and on Freedom Scoop. Watch for us. We'll be here again on Monday night, 9 o'clock. We'll be shooting the shit. Sounds like we've got a little guest action happening. We'll be back next Friday as well. Hopefully we'll have something interesting to talk about. I know it won't be as interesting as Jake here was, but,
certainly not.
Yeah, not everybody has a new beard. So having said that, we're going to get the hell out of here. John, thanks for stopping by. Jake, it's always great to have you here. Folks, have yourselves a good night, and we'll catch you again soon. Peace out.
Yep, see you guys.
And cut.